So, hello everybody. I'm here to tell you a bit about drawing-based game design. It's an idea we had with a friend a few years ago. The point was that I was more about gaming, interaction, coding and all that, and he was more about cooking, which we'll show at some point in the slides, and drawing. So he was messy, I was not, of course. And we decided actually to mix those two stuff together. No alcohol involved whatsoever, of course, at first. So what we had is more or less that. The point was to get, as an entry point in gaming, a drawing. So at first it was the idea of drawing, after it was just pigment on canvas, and you will see it went up quite fast. So what I will present you is the concept first, what I told you a bit already about right now, then game design and game perception. You can imagine that when you have a controller, you have some kind of expectation about game design. When you're dealing with colors, with papers, with food, at some point, you have pretty different kind of expectation. And not only about the design of the game itself, because you draw your own game in the end, but also about the perception of it. This idea of loop between game design and game player, and the fact that you always switch from one to another in this kind of games is a strong point of this talk. Then we'll discuss the tech itself. We try to build a kit and a library to allow, well, at first us, to make some games in a more easy way, and of course other people. So it's both open source, open hardware, and I hope in the end we'll want to have a try at that. But first of all, the most important is that. It's mud. So the point is that our inspiration was more or less mud. Mud as some kind of metaphor of the real world. Real world is, then again, messy, as my friend. Yes, a wonderful picture, right? So the point is that this is what usually you want to avoid. It's like, you know, you come home, you have your messy shoes, you just get rid of them because you enter a clean, shiatsu, whatever, environment where you want to feel at ease and in control of everything. This is nice. And sometimes when you want to code, when you want to create some kind of virtual world, this is what you want to do too. You have something that is clear. You have like clear shapes, clear graphism and all that, and clear gameplay, and everything is, let's say, in control more or less. Of course, I'm talking in a very, very generic way. But that's more the real world. You have huge messiness. So the point would be, why actually would you try to base your game or your interaction or your interface on the real world and not on a virtual world? There is actually one main point for that, is that you have a set of rules which are already there. If, for instance, you try to build a virtual reality or something new, if you want to use, if you want to have a new game, then you have usually one point that is very important, like the game engine, like the graphic engine, or like, I don't know, the physics engine, for instance. And in reality, it's working out pretty well. You see a few bugs sometimes, but it's working pretty well, and the graphics are amazing. So no, I mean, of course it's a joke, but seriously, you have all that already. Why not using it, actually? And the reason why not using it is because it's messy. But when you use that, actually, I mean, this is a joke about, of course, like the physics and the graphics and all that, but you have a lot of rules that you can base upon, not just the classic one, but others, like for instance, we are based on drawing. Everybody knows how to draw. It's like we don't have a tutorial. It's like when we show people, like, this is a felt pen, do you know how to use it? And you have to do, pop, this is the stuff. The stuff is amazing. And then you put that and the color of the pen stays on the paper. It's like, no, it's okay. It's like everybody knows how to do that. And this is the fun part. It's like people just can go with it. And another point we'll see later on the talk. But I stay a long time on this slide because for me, it's the most important one, actually. Another stuff is that if you base yourself on reality, you will use a few set of rules that you will know. Then again, like the physical or whatever stuff, the felt pen and all that. But you will be always surprised by the other one you haven't thought about. And people will come on your interface, your game, and whatever, and reuse these kind of rules that for them are really natural, and you didn't think about that. And we'll see in the game perception that we had a huge surprise about that. So, now, the concept itself is what? Because I tell you a lot about I mean, the drawing and all that. In the end, pretty simple. You got what? The felt pen here, the paper here, you draw whatever you want. Like you can already see, for instance, that you have two kinds of drawings that are pretty different depending on what you want actually to play. Here, for instance, you have this kind of old Game & Watch kind of games that you can create on top of your mind. There you have flip paper, which was some kind of recreation of a pinball. So depending on what kind of game you want to create, of course the drawing will be very, very different. Then you have up there and up there too a webcam. Very simple. We try at some point to get a very expensive one because of course the needs of precision are amazing, and not at all. Very cheap webcam actually is working very fine. And then you have a video projector that will project back on top of the drawing. Both straight on the drawing, so you can see the red drawing there that can be actually highlight, and new stuff like the flippers here and whoosh, the ball here. The point is that, and this is actually one of the gameplay issues we are trying to tackle, is that what you're drawing is of course static. If you draw, I'm not sure you have, yes you do. If you have yellow here, actually if you light it or not, you can make it disappear or not. So you can play with it, but you can make it move in the end. So if you want to have something dynamic, real dynamic, then of course you have to be for it to be virtual, because well, real world is not perfect when it's about drawing. So you have this kind of loop between you draw, you project back on top, and then you have of course the controller, which is not always a must. But still, here as a pinball you have two buttons on the sides, and here you have something from the shape, I have no idea what it is, a game controller, generic one of course. So then the point of drawing is not just to have a huge doodle and you do whatever you want from it. The point was to try to create a language based on that, a set of rules. And we always had two steps on it. The first one was to try to describe as better as we could what kind of shapes one would draw. Sorry. If possible, we try to get out of symbolic shapes. We didn't want to have something like, okay, if you draw a square, it will be that. If you draw a circle, it will be that. A cross, and it will be that. Because then you go more into some kind of code back again. We have a language of shapes, and you don't have a language of drawing. So here, for instance, you have a pinball, which is almost playable, I think. So you see what? First of all, different colors. You see yellow, red, green, and blue. So for instance, in the case of the pinball, the blue is balls, so it will just like bounce on it. The red is a bumper or a shooter, meaning either it will like bounce back a lot, and if you do that many times, it will disappear and destroy and you can go through. For instance, here you see it highlight, so it will bounce. And here the little guy actually already bounced, so it's destroyed, so now the ball can go through and the player loses. Green is warp zone or acceleration, and yellow is 4 points. So you have many kind of gameplays depending on the color. But then again, if it was just colors, it wouldn't be this much fun. You can see, for instance, that here you have another flipper, which is weird because I told you everything about the colors, so you should not be able to do that. But the fact is, depending on how you draw, actually, if it's a point, a line, or if you're circling something inside of another shape, then you have different behaviors. And the point was that, first, to try to get features actually on the drawing. For instance, when we try to create another game, we know that, okay, what is our language? What can we use actually to describe the drawing and to use that to create a gameplay from it? And the second point is, when you have this kind of library done, then you decide which feature you want to get and what kind of gameplay you want to add to it. For instance, in this case, we go back to the other games, which was some kind of Game & Watch game. So if you don't remember those, it's with a little kind of noise. Yeah, he gets it. When you have little shapes actually moving like that. Here in blue, you don't have any more walls, but you have the players themselves. The green is actually a list of bonuses, and the red are maluses, so you die when you get them. And you see the lines. You see actually the movement of the shapes. It will start from there and then move one by one there, and then you have to move your cursor to be able to avoid a few and to get some. So there, if you check, actually you should always almost stay here to get the bonus and avoid more or less this one. So this is interesting to know that, and this is another point we'll see later, is you create your game and you play it. So if your game sucks, maybe it's because you create a game that sucks. So, and of course it's something you usually don't try to say to people. It's like, no, it's amazing, it's awful that your game is not fun. So it's like, you suck, your children suck. No, you don't say that. So the point is that with the drawing, you can create your level design. And I'm saying that with not being completely happy about that, because while it's very fun to level design through drawing, we're trying to reach a point where it's not just level design, but you really interact with the drawing. Sometimes happening, but not always. So the tech, we can go quickly over that because you saw already a bit of it. You have two sides, software and hardware. The software is what you saw already a little bit, being like the library. The hardware, the point of it, because you can imagine like you just need a webcam, a video projector, and then you're set. Why actually would you need a kit to be there? What we wanted to do is to make it as easy as possible for other people to reuse the tech. We had this idea about drawing-based interaction. The more we pushed it, the more we found new stuff actually to do with it, and we know that we're very lazy people and we won't be able to explore completely this medium, so we want other people actually to try out stuff. For that we made a little kit, open hardware too, so people can get actually, not that it's very complex to create, but still people can get it online and then recreate it so they can have some kind of nice setup. I know by experience that when you got just the video projector, the webcam, and you have to spend a lot of time to just be sure everything is in the right axis, it's not very fun. When you got just everything set up already on the table, then it is a breeze. After that you have the library. The point was just to get all geometrical correction, because you can imagine that you don't get like a straight rectangle from the webcam on the drawing itself. Then you filter background, foreground, the image itself. Then you get separation based on the color, depending on the game you want to have, depending on the felt pen you have at hand and everything. You can select actually the kind of region you want to use. Then you get just a contour selection in the end, and from the contours then you can get a more interesting description of the shape itself. For instance, it's just a matter of is it a dot, is it a line, is it a loop, is already huge gameplay wise. We wanted to spend a lot of time actually to get very precise description of the drawing, but it didn't really matter much at first. It was really with just very simple description, it was already very useful enough. You can imagine that if you have 4 colors and 4 description, it gets combinatory, so you have a lot of possibilities already. And if you need to explain to someone for 2 hours every stuff about the drawing, every stuff about like the shapes and all that and what it creates for the gameplay, it kills a bit the idea of being able to just draw and play with it. So it was very important for us, for instance, for the pinball one, to get a set of colors that was coherent. For instance, if you had the blue, you had either the walls or the flipper, which was both very physical shapes, so you could expect what would be happening. This was always this kind of mix between, I will try to be very precise because I know a lot about the graphical language, and I don't know much, but I know I can explore and I can try out and discover new stuff. A bit like Superpower, you would just discover bits by bits by just drawing around. Sometimes you get surprised, it's a bit of a mess, you correct, and then you get like you learn something new. Now, the second part was about game design and game perception. The point is that, as I told you already, you create the game itself before playing it. So you always have this loop about being a designer and being a player, which is pretty fun because technically, when you create, for instance, the pinball stuff, we are game designer. And when we create the library, we are game designer. So a bit meta, but still. The point is that you have always this loop, being creating and playing. And for us, it was always meant to be seen as one, meaning that you create your pinball, you play it, and you realize that, not so fun actually, I made a mistake here, and you correct it, and you play it again, and you correct it, and this was this kind of loop. So it was not about playing, it was not just about creating, it was both as one in the end. One time, we had a little issue with a controller, meaning that in the end, you had, the setup was a bit like that. The people would be playing there, and you had the wall here with the drawing. So basically, more or less, Oh, okay, let's be fair to them, 3 meters, for instance. So just 3 meters, 6 to 4 round trip, in order to play and then correct at the drawing. Nobody would correct the drawing. Nobody did. It's like they knew they could, but nobody did that because it was too far actually, and the loop was destroyed. They were not in the mood, and it's not. At first, of course, we were like, it was a huge criticism to them. It's like, come on, don't be lazy, do that. But it's pretty coherent in the end. It's like, it's not. I mean, because in this case, you would switch from one side to the other one. When, for instance, you're on the flip paper itself, I mean. You're there, you play, and then you draw, and you don't change role somehow. So the switch, the cognitive load about switching is way little, and then you become both at the same time. So that was pretty fun. So yeah, oops, I forgot to hide this slide to explain it even better. Anyway, so yeah, you really have this. So yeah, I won't repeat everything I have said for the last 2 minutes. So there you go, the designer and the player itself. So, as I said before, everybody knows how to do and everybody loves to do dough. It's fun, you just do whatever you want, it's free and all that. But in the end, actually, I realized that when I was writing this slide, so for a very long time, as you can expect, I lied actually. Everybody loves to doodle, it's more or less true, but everybody doesn't love to doodle in front of other people. Especially when we try to expose other drawing and we don't expose the worst one, we expose like the one, we exhibit the one that are pretty nice, and people have a huge like pressure about, I won't be able to do the same stuff as that, and they won't try it. And it's usually hard to make people draw by themselves, but in this case, we have a motivation to do so, because then again, it's not just a drawing, it's not just a game, it's both. Whoops, thank you. So it's both. The point is that at first, when people say, I don't know what to draw, it's like, okay, don't draw then. It's like, you know how to play pinball, you like it? Yeah, then play it. And at first, you have like a blank screen. So you just launch the ball, and you have like the little flipper on the side. You launch the ball, and woo, boop, game over. This was fun, right? And it's like, oh, this is not good. Let me just draw like, poof, poof, on the sides, some kind of blue balls, and then, ta-da, you're done. It's like the person is starting to draw already. And of course, then he launches the ball, and the game is very boring. It's like, okay, let me add something, and it's done. It's like if you're not really into gaming, but you like drawing, then you will enter this kind of games through drawing. If you don't like drawing, or if you like drawing, but you're not really at ease with drawing, and you have no starting point, it's like, what do I draw? What do I draw? It's like, it's very hard. Then you have like reasons from the game design to actually enter this space. And of course, I mean, this is true as a starting point, but the end point is to get this kind of results being a game and a drawing. If you remember, the red stuff is bumpers that actually explode, meaning that you destroy them and you can go through. So basically you have a boss and you can really like destroy the octopus kind of thing, yeah? You can destroy the octopus and then just reach new height on it. So you can really play on the game design to animate the drawing in a very different way. Anyway, I'm using animate, but it's not true, because animation will be something that would be like not static, but like having just like linear in time. And in our case, it's not that. It will be like, I don't know, a game drawing, something like that. So it's pretty fun to play with. And we have the right to the picture. We don't. But so this guy, we were exhibiting in Rennes at Stunfest. Very nice event. Thank you, Thomas. And this guy had actually a white polo shirt with the 3 colors we are using at the time. And it's like, dude, you have to play your shirt. And he did. And the point was that when I was telling you about rules in like real life rules and all that, that we always be surprised by. This is one of them actually. It's the guy just like had his t-shirt and you could do that. And because we're not very specific, I can give you his number if you want to. So if you're not too specific actually, if you're fuzzy, and this is the key word too about messiness, the mud and all that, if you're fuzzy about everything, then you can get this kind of weird results. And this kind of weird results, meaning we always wanted to play well with our food. So quickly, what you have here is an okonomiyaki. For those that don't know, it's some kind of Japanese pancake pizza mashup, let's say. Here you have onions, here you have ginger, green and red, enough said. So there what you get more or less, here you have a little player, so this was really like cutting edge technology, and I'm not referring to the knife since we use chopsticks. But the point was that we had little players, and the stuff was you tried to shoot each other and to get out of the okonomiyaki so you could get the last okonomiyaki actually to eat. This was very stupid, we loved it. So, and that, just to give you an idea, that cost us in a matter of time, I don't know, but it was counted in hours. So like we were super busy during the week. We created that, and yet at some point we said, let's do that, because it's easy when you have like the library and all that, and we have the kids too. It's easy to recreate everything. I mean, it's easy to use that to create any kind of new games you would want, either from drawing or just from colors. So very quickly too, the fun part is like paper cartridge, meaning that you can just like take another drawing, use it here, change it from one game to another, and this idea of copy pasting or cutting and pasting, yep, you can use it too. So you can really like cut one level design and put it on another one, and you have interesting mashup. And one last point to emphasize even more on the fuzzy gameplay would be that at first for us, the flip paper, these kind of games were one-person game. It's like always this kind of fluid, the game designer, the game player, very important subject and topic and all that. But no, at some point we got 5 people coming on an exhibition. One guy starting to play, the other one like puff, bumping in him and using like the other button. So you're already 2 players, two people playing. Then you had all the other friends taking each one felt pen and trying to draw everything to just like mess with the other player. And there you go. You had some kind of fuzzy multiplayer, not really multiplayer, but not really one player either. And this kind of interaction that we really didn't expect. At first, like, no, stay in line, don't do that. It's a very good idea. Yeah. So that's a bit the point of it. You can really get surprised by the results. And I wish I could say that we were surprised 1 year ago, but now we learn everything and we are on top of it. Of course not. We always get new surprise from the players themselves. And yeah, 5 more seconds about a very important, interesting point that could be another topic itself is why do you play? Very quickly, if you look at other games, other way of playing and all that, you see that you usually try to reach a better score, you try to kill the last boss, you just want to finish this level, and you have excuses to play. It's like, why do you play? Why tonight do you want to play your MMORPG, for instance? Because my link needs me. Like, really? It's like your friends need you? It's not because it's fun. This is a bit boring, now it reminds you of a job. And of course, it is still fun. But if you ask why you are playing, you will more get excuses than just because I love it, because it's fun. And in this case, since you're designing the game, since the idea of a score doesn't really matter anymore, you lose this kind of excuses. And you see some kind of almost angst sometimes, which are pretty fun to see, not for the players, but for us at least. When they don't realize, like, okay, I'm stuck, I created the game, I played it, it's very fun, but what next? So, in our case, what's next would be you. We created the tech, we created the little bits and all that. We do workshops now, we try to share the knowledge about it, the tech about it. And if you want to participate with us, please, we love to share the open source library and all that and to get new players and designers. Thanks a lot.
For just one question. One question we can do.
So, when is it? Are you going to share your code on Untitled? If so, when?
Sorry?
Are you going to share your code on keep it? And if so, when?
Yeah, we are a bit shy because it will be a first time for us. For now, we share it, let's say, at demand somehow. It's like because we want to, we know that the best way to kill another person's project is to release a bad code. That will just, make people not want to come back to it. So we are a bit shy about how much errors or how much bad practice, let's say, would have in our code, and we'd love actually to get some new people to explore it already. So we are very eager to share it, and hopefully in the upcoming couple of months it will be on GitHub. And this process will be fastened as much as we can find people to actually try it out already.
So you do have a community, but it's still a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to try it out, please. And thanks to you to be on GitHub soonish.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.